Education is a silver bullet. Education has the power to disrupt poverty, and it has the potential to change a family's destiny in just one generation. Part of the American fabric is that we're able to look at a kid and say, and it doesn't matter what their socioeconomic status is, and be able to say to them, it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. If you work hard and you get your education, you can live the American dream. Now, it feels like it's getting a little harder to say that. I believe that we're in danger of losing the silver bullet. And I propose that for our future, we need to fix it. We need to save the silver bullet because it's absolutely critical for our future. I know personally the power of education because I was born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, New York. I'm a first-generation American. My mother came here from Argentina. She struggled to raise me as a single mother growing up, a single mother on welfare. Didn't speak a word of English. Took me to school at PS 111, and they said, welcome to PS 111. And I said, ¿Qué me dijo? And so English is technically my second language. Now, growing up in New York in the 70s and 80s wasn't particularly easy. I witnessed my first murder when I was 8 years old. I was 14 the first time I heard and felt a bullet whiz by my head. I attended more funerals than school dances when I was in high school. And I watched friends I grew up with turn into thugs, criminals, drug addicts, drug dealers, and some of them even into murderers. I wanted nothing to do with that world. I wanted out. So I worked hard, I got my education, I graduated from high school, I went to college, I graduated from college, I got my master's degree, and today I am living a life that I didn't think was possible. I am living the American dream. I also know the power and potential that education can have on changing a family's destiny. I have 2 kids of my own. I have a 12-year-old and a 20-year-old. This is the part where you're supposed to tell me that I don't look like I have a 20-year-old. Come on, play along. Thank you. And my 20-year-old is in her 3rd year of college. I never told her she had to go to college. She just assumed she was going to college because I went to college. She assumed that she's going to graduate school because I went to graduate school. She assumes I'm also paying for that, but that's a good problem to have. My 12-year-old has been looking at colleges since he was 6. Their experiences and their expectations of what life is going to bring them is completely different than what my expectations were. And so I know they're going to be okay. That's the power and the potential of education. That's the power and potential of what education can do, not just for an individual, not only for the family, but for the community at large. And yet, when we look at what's going on, we have an achievement gap that continues to grow. Even though we've had some progress in closing the academic gap. At least from the 1970s, when you look at some of the numbers, we've done some work in closing that gap that we had from the 70s, but we haven't really done a lot since 2008. And you can see by these charts that I'm putting up there that we need to do a better job closing that gap. Because that gap is still wide. Today, a 4-year-old has an 18-month academic gap between a rich kid and a poor kid. 6 out of 10 low-income students that are in 4th grade can't do math at level. A low-income kid is less likely to graduate from high school, of course, less likely to go to college. And these are the issues that we're dealing with. Now, I know all this sounds dreadful, and I'm not Debbie Downer, so I'm not here to depress all of you, because I'm actually extremely optimistic about the future. Because you see, for most of history, where you're from, where you were born, the family that you were born into, the resources at your disposal, your access to books, and your proximity to libraries were all factors that determined your academic success. When I was growing up, our community had one library. The Columbus Library on 51st Street and 10th Avenue. Now, this was not the mecca of a resource center. Limited resources, books missing, kids would take books and never bring them back. It would close at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But this is where all of us had to go to get our resources. All the schools, both public and private, all the citizens in the community, we had this library to use. And right before our eyes, this is changing. We no longer have to worry about having access to libraries because all the world's information is at our fingertips. We have 10,000 Columbus libraries in our pocket. And so that's the power of technology, and that's the power of information that now we have access to. And so how do we use the web? How do we use technology in education? And I know what you're saying. We've been talking about using technology in education for a really long time. First, it was motion pictures. Then it was television. We've been talking about the use of computers in education since at least the 1960s. So what's different this time? Well, I'm going to propose 3 things. First, we have enough information in learning sciences that shows us that we learn in different ways, that the factory model of education isn't good enough, that we need to be able to customize and make education relevant and engaging. And yet, my 12-year-old is basically having the same experience in education that I had. And technology can help us recreate what that learning experience looks like. Second, the impact and effect that technology and the web have had in our lives. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have not used the web today? That's what I thought. We're on the web when we barely wake up in the morning. We wake up, we grab our devices, we fire them up, and we're on the web. It's the new cigarette. And how long did that take? 5 years? Do you remember we used to have to call the internet? With our home phones? And the internet would be busy. You know, I can't talk to you right now, call me back later. And what was our reward for the effort that we put into this? A bunch of web pages that had words with links to other web pages that had words. And every once in a while, there'd be a picture, and it would take an extra 10 minutes to load up. And we were so excited by this. And today we lose our minds if we don't have adequate bandwidth while we're torpedoing through space at 535 miles an hour at 35,000 feet. I've watched teachers, the nicest people in the world, turn into a mob at conferences if the bandwidth wasn't adequate. This happened rather quickly, don't you think? But it's integrated into our lives. Technology is now part of who we are. And the third aspect is the next generation of kids that are coming into our schools. I want you to think about a 5-year-old. And then I want you to think about the device that you have, your new phone, your new tablet, your new laptop. And I want you to realize that that technology that you have is the worst technology that 5-year-old will ever see. It's their Commodore 64. They're going to be in their mid-20s, and they're going to find your device in the 50-cent box at a garage sale, And they're going to bring it home and put it up on a shelf like a museum piece. And they're going to laugh at the fact that you used to have to charge it every day. These are the kids that are coming into our school system. So we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for them? This is a picture of my 12-year-old. I'm trying to watch football, and I turn to my left and I see this. And on one machine, he's playing this new game he discovered called Minecraft. Yes, there will be Minecraft rehab centers all over the country. And on the other machine, he's watching videos, YouTube videos, teaching himself how to play Minecraft. He's gone from this, and in a few short months, he's gone from this to communicating and collaborating and problem solving and building with kids all over the world, to creating his own videos, teaching other kids how to play Minecraft. A couple of weekends ago, he tells me that he can't go to bed because he still has some customers. Apparently, my 12-year-old is a casino owner. And there's a couple of kids that are playing games that he's designed, that he knows P&L lines on, that he knows what the betting line should be, that he has experimented with. And, you know, these kids are playing these games, and he doesn't want to leave because, God forbid, his casino gets a bad reputation. But these are the students that are coming into our schools. How they learn how to do things is different than the way we learned how to do things. Their expectations of what they're learning and how they're learning and who an expert is different than the experts that we thought were experts. It's fundamentally different, and we need to pay attention to that. And so instead of talking about whether or not we should be using technology in education, the real question is, how do we use technology in education? That's what we should be focused on. Speaking of students, I take any opportunity I can to go talk to them whenever I can. I love talking to the students. I talk to them about technology, education, the skills they need, what it's like to work at Google, all the other things that are fascinating to kids. Especially kids that are growing up the way I grew up, because it's important for them to see someone like me who's made it and realize that if I make it, they can make it too. And I talk to them about making sure that they put the effort into what they're doing, because if they can make it out of their situation, who they are, how they grew up, their experiences and their perspective can be competitive advantage for them. Because I guarantee them that when they're in a room, they probably will have the only perspective that's unique to them. And the other thing I do is I make sure I don't ask them what they want to be when they grow up. I also make sure I don't tell them that they should go get a college degree so they can be a doctor or a lawyer or even an engineer. What I do instead is I ask them, what problem do you want to solve? What are you interested in solving? What spins in your head? How do you want to impact the world? And then I challenge them to go back and think about and research the education they'll need, the videos they can watch, the people they can talk to that can help them define and build the skills that they need to solve that problem. And I tell them that they have access to information that I never had, and they have no excuse. I want to empower them to believe that if they can focus on a problem and they can build a skill set that they need, they can solve any problem that they want. And so it's important to focus on how do we make sure we take advantage of the technology that we have in front of us. Now, in order to save the silver bullet, we need to focus on a lot of different things, but I want to focus on two specific things. The first thing is that we need to help teachers build the knowledge, skills, and abilities that they need to help our students thrive. Professional development and support is absolutely critical. This is the generation of teachers that are building our new learning models. They're building the models that are project-based, that kids use. The kids are doing projects, and they're learning how to do things based on experimentation, based on iteration. that they're building competencies and can get measurable outcomes and focus on critical skills that they need, and teachers are the ones that are helping us develop what these models look like. Because we have to remember that at the end of the day, a teacher in the classroom is the most important factor in a kid's education. I've had some influential people in my life, but I still remember the impact that my 4th grade teacher had in not being able and not accepting mediocrity from me. Or my 9th grade teacher that showed me how to do math in a way I'd never seen before and absolutely taught me that if I knew how to do something given a certain methodology, I can learn anything. Teachers are absolutely critical. The second thing we have to do is make sure that we focus on building the right infrastructure, using the right technology, and giving the right access in support of these new learning models. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have these things in place, none of the other stuff matters. And access is not the same in all schools. And we want to make sure that kids are have access, and that we're not creating even a bigger digital divide. So we have to make sure that we have the right infrastructure in place. And from a technologist perspective, our job is to make sure that we're building the tools that are simple to use, that are easy to use, that are scalable, and at the same time are absolutely useful and invisible to a teacher. And that's the challenge that we have. Because technology is not the silver bullet. Education is the silver bullet. Technology is there to support and enable great education. And so that's how we have to keep the focus. Now, education is a silver bullet. It can change a family's destiny in just one generation. It has the power and potential to do amazing things. And for me and countless others like me, it's given us an opportunity to participate in a world we never dreamed was possible. We absolutely have to save the silver bullet because our future depends on it. And at the end, don't we as Americans want to make sure that we continue the tradition of being able to look at a kid and say, listen, don't worry about the expectations that society has for you. You can exceed them. You can work, you can grow, you can learn, you can participate and solve problems that impact the world. And through education and hard work, you can live the American dream. Thank you very much.